Hey, so we're continuing with Beverly Cleary's novel called Socks. This is fiction. It means that it's a make-believe story. The character is Socks, and Mr. and Mrs. Bricker are bringing Socks home today. Chapter 2 is called The Bricker's Other Pet. And let's see how long chapter 2 is. Oh, it's pretty long also. So we may not be able to finish this one in one reading. We'll have to try it out. Let's see. The Brickers drove Socks to a shabby house with a weedy lawn, a fragrant lemon bush, and geraniums growing in earth comfortable for a kitten to dig in. They made a bed for Socks from a carton and an old sweatshirt and placed it in the laundry beside his dish. So I'm picturing their house. It said it's shabby, which just means it's a little bit run down. It's not really fancy, with a weedy lawn. So there's lots of weeds in the lawn. A lemon bush, and flowers called geraniums. They have a box with an old sweatshirt in the laundry room beside his dish. They did not object when he chose instead to sleep on the couch in the living room, which, except for a chair with loopy upholstery, was furnished in what the Brickers described to their college student friends as contemporary cast-off. That means second-hand. So someone else was buying something new, so they gave their old furniture to Mr. and Mrs. Bricker. So they're a young couple just starting out, not very much money. They fed him canned and dry cat foods and bought raw meat for him. They wiped his paws on a good bath towel whenever he came in with wet feet, because they had not been married long enough to have an old bath towel. And when the winter rains came, they supplied him with a pan of kitty litter, so he wouldn't have to go outside for the potty. The Brickers talked to their cat. "Socks, you're getting a lot of service around here," said Mr. Bricker, as he left his studies to get down on his hands and knees and fetch the ping-pong ball Socks had batted underneath the chest of drawers out of reach of his paw. I used to have to do that all the time for my dog. They pushed a little toy under the sofa or under the drawers. "Such silky fur," Mrs. Bricker spoke in her just for Socks voice as she left off typing to press her cheek against his fur and let her long hair fall over him like a curtain. Socks' throat throbbed with purrs. He was especially happy when he could interrupt her work on the papers that she typed for students. Her typewriter was his rival for her attention, and Socks did not like rivals. Her typewriter. I wonder if you know what a typewriter is. It's what I learned. It's this thing where the keys are on your computer, but you put a paper in the typewriter and you type the keys, and the letters show up right there. You don't have a separate printer. You don't have any. Um, it just types the letters. It doesn't have anything else that a computer has. And a rival is someone who steals, like who you fight against. So the typewriter takes a lot of Mrs. Bricker's attention, so it's Sock's rival for her attention. They're fighting to get the attention. The only real unpleasantness in Sock's new life was an unhappy day spent in a veterinarian's hospital, which was soon forgotten. Socks thrived. His eyes changed from blue to the color of new leaves. That's what happens with baby dogs and cats. They're born with blue eyes and then they turn different brown or green. He grew into a sleek cat, affectionate toward his loving owners, but firm about getting his own way. He was the center of the Bricker house, and he was content. Boy, he sounds a little bit spoiled to me, doesn't he? Maybe not. Maybe he's just really well loved. Then, a strange thing happened. Mrs. Bricker's lap, where he likes to sit, began to shrink. One day, Socks was perfectly comfortable resting on her knees, and the next day he did not quite have enough room. Each time he napped on her lap, he had to curl himself into a tighter ball with his tail wrapped more closely around his body. Finally, one evening, when trying to find room to rest his chin, he lost his balance and fell to the floor with a thump. Both Brickers burst out laughing. Socks was insulted. He turned his back and twitched his tail back and forth across the carpet to show his displeasure. Pleasure is something that pleases you. It's happy. Displeasure means unhappy, upset. "Poor Socks," said Mrs. Bricker, between giggles. "You lost your dignity, didn't you?" "Come on, old boy," coaxed Mr. Bricker. "Try my lap for size." He moved his chair away from his desk to make room. The tail twitched. The Brickers would have to work harder before Socks would forgive them. Owners must be disciplined. That means there must be consequences, like timeout chairs. If they really wanted to be forgiven, they would have to tempt him with a snack from the refrigerator. Instead of going to the kitchen, Mrs. Bricker suddenly said in an urgent voice, "Bill, it's time to go." "All right, kiddos, what is happening to Mrs. Bricker's lap? Did you figure it out?" Yeah. And where do you think they're off to? "Are you sure?" Mr. Bricker's voice registered excitement, worry, and joy all at once. Socks waited. He needs his snack and his treat before he'll forgive them, right? Are they thinking about him anymore? These people had to learn. "I'm positive," said Mrs. Bricker in a small, scared voice. "This is it." With great dignity, Socks stalked to the one piece of furniture forbidden him, the chair with the loopy upholstery. That means fabric. He placed his paws on the chair, arched his back, and pulled. Rip, rip, rip. Were you right? She was having a baby, so that's why her lap was disappearing. And they're probably off to the hospital to have a baby. So do you see the upholstery on the chair? Upholstery. That just means the fabric. The Brickers gave Socks attention, but not in the way that he expected. He found himself caught up, carried down the hall, and tossed into the dark laundry room beside his pan of kitty litter. The door shut after him. "Sorry, old boy," said Mr. Bricker, as he gave the door an extra push to make sure it latched. He was tossed in the laundry room. That's not supposed to happen. After a moment of shocked silence, Socks let out a yowl of rage and waited to be let out. Go get it, Molly. He could hear the Brickers talking in quick, anxious voices. He could hear the whirr, whirr, whirr of the telephone dial, but he did not hear anyone coming down the hall to let him out. Yes, I don't know if you've ever seen one, but when I was growing up, the telephones had circles on the front with numbers inside it, and you had to put your finger on a number and go around the circle, and then it would unspin, and then you would press your finger inside the hole of another circle, and it would go around to spin. There were no push buttons in my age when I was a little one. Socks meowed his loudest, crossest meow. Footsteps hurried. The front door slammed. Out on the driveway the old station wagon started, died, started again, and drove away. The house was silent. So was Socks. After months of catnip and treats, of service and attention, to be treated like this. Poor Socks. He just can't believe it. And sometimes in a chapter, they'll have a little natural spot, a perfect spot to stop, and they'll put a little space between the sentences, meaning that this is still the same chapter, um, but but time is passing between this moment and this one. So we'll come back tomorrow and start back up over here. Okay?